when I was beefing with him, he would go, "We everywhere, you never there." And it's because I was already in the arenas. So what would I be doing back in the nightclub?
Yeah.
At that point.
I like to tell the people home, I feel so safe tonight with all this police protection courtesy of G Unit. Fat Joe is man. Pussy boy.
After Terrence T.A. Dixon dropped a bombshell complaint claiming he saw the rapper grooming, isolating, and exploiting underage girls while working under his label, Fat Joe's lawyer didn't waste time firing back. But now, 50 Cent just came forward and finally spoke on how Fat Joe allegedly tried to set him up to get eliminated, and this new RICO lawsuit might actually support those claims. This ain't just about rap beef anymore, we're talking potential murder for hire, wild accusations of Joe being a whole PDF file, and serious talk about him running his crew like a full-blown street enterprise. And the craziest part? The man spilling all this tea isn't some outsider, it's Joe's own hype man, who rocked with him for over 10 years. So now, the question is, where does 50 Cent really come into this mess? Cause if y'all remember, his beef with Fat Joe back in the day, that wasn't no petty back and forth. That was real smoke. And according to this lawsuit, Joe tried to off you multiple times, and the only reason it didn't go through Waskow's fit security was to locked in.
What happened, Daddy?
It's Fat Joe's record. I listened to it. It hurt me. I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't care about the money. I care about the money.
So according to this brand new lawsuit filed by Fat Joe's former hype man, Terrence T.A. Dixon, Joe wasn't just trying to shut 50 up. He allegedly wanted him gone, like permanently. Dixon claims that during the height of their beef, Fat Joe actually put out a hit on 50, and the plan was to make it look like just another street robbery gone wrong. According to the lawsuit, Fat Joe allegedly orchestrated a calculated and premeditated plot to take out rapper Curtis Jackson aka 50 Cent sometime between late 2006 and early 2007. Back then, Joe was living in Miami, and when he got word that 50 was in New York for an event, he allegedly gave the green light to move on him. But here's the thing, 50 was rolling with military-grade security, and the hitman backed off, scared to even make a move. The lawsuit even claims Joe straight up told people to put a bag on 50's head and got heated when it wasn't handled fast enough. Dixon also claims in his lawsuit that Joe told his associates that he was trying to get 50 for a Minuteth. Lawsuit states that Joe was visibly shaken and upset when talking about how the hit didn't go through, showing not just intent, but that he was actively planning and coordinating with people. On the ground, Dixon says the plot was serious enough that they were allegedly tracking 50's every move, using his tour schedule to try and set up ambushes at multiple public spots. So as soon as this lawsuit hit the headlines and 50 Cent finally spoke up, fans were waiting for a total meltdown. But instead, 50 dropped a message that looked more like he was defending Fat Joe, even calling Dixon's lawsuit a straight-up stick-up. 50 posted a pic of himself with Joe, set to Young Buck's prices on my head, and caption it, "These baseless accusations ain't credible. Sorry Joe has to go through all this public heat and damage to his representative. This right here, straight up stick up. I wrote this hook, maybe I should have kept it." But it looks like a lot of people are confused by 50's reaction, and they're saying they can't tell if 50 is being petty or sincere. And someone else said, 50 is playing chess if he goes this route. Joe will be loyal because he knows it's true. Sincere me now. Sure, anyone can say anything in a lawsuit, but this is coming from a guy who had inside access, someone claiming Joe ran his whole crew like a straight up mob boss. And the hit on 50, that wasn't even the worst dirty move. Behind the scenes. So let's dive into what else TA is accusing Joe of. And trust me, it only gets way more disturbing from here. According to Dixon, Fat Joe engaged in relations with a minor and even paid for a BBL to a girl who was 15. The complaint, filed in federal court in New York, lays out so many graphic allegations about Fat Joe's involvement with underage girls that it actually starts with a trigger warning. And get this, the whole document is 157 pages long. In the lawsuit, Dixon claims that, according to Dixon, Fat Joe forced him into humiliating situations, including acts performed under duress and constant surveillance, with threats that if he didn't comply, he'd be abandoned in foreign countries. Dixon says he was coerced into over 4,000 acts just to keep his place in Joe's operation. But without a doubt, the most disturbing part of the lawsuit is where Dixon claims Fat Joe was involved with female victims who weren't even legal adults at the time. Dixon also claims he personally witnessed Fat Joe engage in relations with victims who were 15 and 16, and then he lists 3 Jane Doe victims, including a 16-year-old Dominican from New York who, in return for cash, clothes, and having her cell phone bill paid, allegedly performed certain acts for Fat Joe. The second alleged victim is described as a Caucasian female and not a United States citizen. According to Dixon, Fat Joe started having relations with Jane Doe when she was 15, and he says it happened after a concert overseas, and allegedly Fat Joe flew this girl to New York City and Miami, Florida, on multiple occasions. But this next part is actually sickening. Dixon claims that due to Jane Doe's body being not fully formed, Fat Joe paid for her to get a BBL. As for Jane Doe 3, Dixon says she's a Latina female who met Fat Joe when she was around 15, almost 16. According to Dixon, Fat Joe was actually in love with Jane Doe 3 and even thought about leaving his wife for her. The complaint claims Fat Joe covered all her expenses and took her on tour overseas. He also allegedly brought her to Florida, where he put her up in a condo just a few blocks away from his home with his wife. At that time, Fat Joe was in his late 30s. Dixon also attached several photos of Jane Doe 3 hanging out with her high school friends, claiming these pictures were snapped right around the time Fat Joe was allegedly moving Jane Doe across state lines. So, does this mean Fat Joe is buying hit with a RICO lawsuit? Well, here's the thing. At the moment, this is a civil RICO lawsuit. Basically, it's how private individuals can take someone to court under the RICO Act, a law that was originally designed to target the mafia and organized crime syndicates. In a civil RICO case, the plaintiff needs to prove there was an enterprise involved, a group or organization, not just some random individual acting alone. And this is exactly what T.A. Dixon is claiming. He alleges that Fat Joe was running a full-on criminal enterprise with some co-conspirators. Dixon even named 2 of these key players, Pistol Pete Torres and Richard Rich Blair Jiffer, calling them major associates in Fat Joe's alleged crime ring. Another hurdle Dixon has to clear to win this case is proving this enterprise engaged in a pattern of racketeering, meaning at least 2 criminal acts like fraud, extortion, drug trafficking, or witness intimidation. Plus, he has to show these crimes happen repeatedly over time, not just once-off incidents. RICO cases always sound huge because they imply an organized crime system, not just random wrongdoing, which is why plaintiffs use it strategically. Even though this is a civil lawsuit, the word RICO carries serious weight. It grabs attention from both the public and law enforcement. And let's be honest, RICO charges aren't new in hip-hop. From YSL to Casanova, and of course, Diddy, the feds are definitely watching the scene closely. But if these allegations hold up and this kind of operation ran for over a decade, the big question becomes, why did T.A. Dixon stay silent for so long? Is 50 Cent right to call this a stick-up? And what finally made Dixon flip? Well, according to Dixon, he kept quiet out of fear, not just for his career, but for his life. He says there were serious threats when he tried to walk away, and that Joe kept him close because he knew way too much. Most people outside the game might not recognize the name Terrence A. Dixon, but he was Fat Joe's hype man for a solid 16 years, right there beside him on tour after tour. But now Dixon is flipping the script, saying Joe used his power to keep everyone in line through fear and intimidation. Now, people are wondering, is this about justice or just revenge? Because if you look deeper, the fallout between Dixon and Fat Joe wasn't just a single event. Dixon claims it was years of being exploited, underpaid, and eventually pushed out when he stopped playing along. And get this, he even called out Roc Nation in his lawsuit, accusing them of helping Fat Joe run his criminal empire. Dixon described Roc Nation as a strategic facilitator and an actor in racketeering activities. According to him, Roc Nation was either aware of or willfully blind to Fat Joe's illegal actions. Dixon also claimed to be one of the victims, pointing to forced labor, financial fraud, retaliatory violence, and sex trafficking as part of the scheme. But see, it's the timing that's really making people raise their eyebrows. Folks are wondering, when Joe's career has been pretty quiet and the spotlight's mostly been on other rap moguls, if Todd Dixon is just trying to sneak this case in for a payday because the feds are already watching the hip-hop world. Or is he actually telling the truth, and this is only the first domino to fall? So here we are with a 157-page RICO lawsuit filled with shocking allegations, including claims of PDF file activity. Yet, in the middle of all this, 50 Cent is basically brushing it off, saying Fat Joe's getting set up. Now, remember how hard 50 went after Diddy, even dragging Jay-Z into that mess. So why is he so confident that Fat Joe's clean? I mean, Diddy hasn't even been convicted yet, and 50 is already making a documentary about those allegations. And as for Jay-Z, 50 Cent has been calling him out since that very first lawsuit against Diddy dropped. In fact, just weeks ago, 50 trolled Jay again and insinuated he was involved in Diddy's blowing up of Kid Kai's car, but now that Fat Joe's been hit with a lawsuit and his accuser even dragged Jay-Z's Roc Nation into the mix as co-conspirators, 50 Cent is still brushing it off. Maybe that fan who said 50 plays chess was onto something. Maybe he's not really defending Joe. Maybe he's just protecting his own interests. The real question is, how much does 50 actually know? Because if Fat Joe really tried to put a bag over 50's head, and if the rest of this lawsuit checks out, then this is just the beginning. The RICO wars have officially arrived, and some insiders are saying the feds might be coming for 50 next.